what excites you about your work?
It sounds corny, but it'd have to be the impact we're making every day.
Welcome to Life Untangled. I'm Professor Jane Burns, and in each episode we speak to people from all walks of life about their passions, the messiness of life, and what they're doing to make the world a better place.
You're listening to another Torched original. Are you feeling stuck when it comes to creating content for you and your business? Would you like a podcast of your very own? Or maybe you'd like to stand out and reach new audiences? Head to gettorched.com. That's GETTORCHT.com today, and we look forward to helping you on your content creation journey. And now, enjoy the show.
Nathan Luca, fabulous to have you on Life Untangled. Now, I'm going to start off with a question. What does a normal day look like for you?
Well, in the world of whistleblowing, I'm not sure there really is a normal day in handling a range of concerns and organisations, but every day starts with my son and my wife. We spend the morning together playing, like every other family, I guess, in Australia that has children, getting off to daycare, doing the standard things, and we just really cherish that time. It's some of the only time I get to spend with him through the week. Then head into the office, where I've got the luxury of working with some really fit, healthy people. So there's probably a workout in between that, either with a co-worker or solo. And then we go through our daily stand-up. We have a leader in every single brand and offering we have. So Your Call's Whistleblowing, Rely with software, issue management, and then our culture framework under Your Call as well, which is our advisory service. Catch up with each single person, understand what's on for the day, what we need to deal with, and any of those urgent matters we might need to help organisations deal with.
Now, it sounds very, very organised and almost to a timetable. Now, that is, I know as a mum to 3 kids, those days never really work out like that. So
no, that's exactly right. Not at all. That's the podcast answer.
You've told me stories about Oscar when his nappy's been so full. And I've lived that experience.
It's no different to anyone else, though. I'm not special. That's no different to any other parent or caregiver in Australia or around the world. So no different. But yeah, it's not that pretty. You've been there with a 2-year-old. Anything could pop up. You could be late to a meeting. It was only last week that Oscar refused to go to daycare to the point, and his mum was in a really important conference and work event. I had no option, and I had to be on site.
Yep.
Well, off he came with me to the office. Unplanned. We've never done it before. He's only 2. And he had to spend 6 hours
and how'd he go?
Do his nap there.
How'd he go? Because I've done that with Holly in the Young and Well office, and it was the best thing. She still remembers it, and that's when she was like 3 or 4, and she's now 13.
Oh,
she
really?
still remembers it. Yeah,
that's interesting. What? I don't know if he'll still remember it, but he was like you though. You were ringing in my ear because you've told me that story before. He was fantastic. He was getting to know everyone. He was well behaved. He played with toys. He jumped onto the meeting video a few times, and then he was totally relaxed. Slept well. It was a day out for him. So I think it's one of those things. Kids are more resilient than you give them credit for. I think you get in your own head as a parent that everything needs to work in a perfectly linear way, or that your child or your children are going to fit into this boxed approach to life. It just doesn't work that way. And I think that's a great lesson Oscar taught me as well, which is lean into it, embrace what's happened, and just orient what the plan was and get it done. And that's what happens. So yeah, you're right. A day could turn out to any type or fashion, but with the privilege of working with such a high number of clients, one thing remains, which is there's a high number of issues. So we receive a high number of issues from around Australia and the globe every single day. It's a 24/7 service. So we have like a command centre of sorts where we need to triage those, help our organisations respond, make sure we get people out of harm's way, and then obviously any consulting, anything we need to do.
Yeah, now talk to the audience about whistleblowing, because, when I first heard about your organisation, I'd driven past, every day looking it up and going, what is that? Clarity Workplace Solutions, like, what is that company? And then suddenly there's a knock at the door, and it was, would you like to come and have a chat to Nathan Vince? And I thought, whistleblowing, Watergate, Erin Brockovich, and you think catastrophic events like a sexual assault or a terrible underhanded criminal activity. What is it?
I'm glad you raised that, because it's got to be the first whistleblowing corporate sign and merchandise populating, local suburbs and the city, etc. And we did that on purpose. So people like yourself, but also to destigmatise what that means.
Yep.
It's okay to be a whistleblowing company and have whistleblowers there. That's a good thing. Let's embrace it. So the sign was for that purpose. I'm glad I got your attention. Whistleblowing has got a bad brand. WikiLeaks, Snowden, the movies that have come out. At the end of the day, what we're talking about is most organisations have a whistleblower policy, and that policy affords the staff and the stakeholders safe passage of sorts, or shows the commitment that organisation is going to make to that individual to protect them, to listen, and the actions they're going to take to enable them to speak up safely, anonymously if they choose, but essentially to jump outside the hierarchy. So what I need to raise, I'm not comfortable telling my line, my direct manager. It might be about my line direct manager. I might be fearful that I'm going to receive detriment in doing so. So I'm going to use the whistleblowing facility to do that. And they might call someone like your call to do that. There are some organisations are captured by the Corporations Act. So there are laws as well and provisions within the Act now, which is fantastic, that provides legal definitions of what a whistleblower is and legal protections and penalties, civil and criminal penalties to an organisation.
What excites you about your work?
It sounds corny, but it'd have to be the impact we're making every day. So your call has built itself up to being able to serve hundreds of organisations in Australia, which works out to be a few million stakeholders per day can call our service or make an online report about something that doesn't seem quite right, that they want to question or that they want to speak up about. We get them out of harm's way. We work with the organisation and we help learn from that situation and reach a resolution. Helping people in this way causes a massive ripple effect. So if you look at the stress and anxiety that takes place pre-reporting, through that elapsed time where you see something's quite wrong and then you make that decision to speak up, in that elapsed time there can be absenteeism, stress, drop of productivity. That can impact family, co-workers. There's major ripple effects through that event. When they do choose to speak up and they have a surprisingly positive experience in doing so through our service and then working with the organisation in a trauma-informed, compassionate process, we alleviate a lot of that stress and we help them see light at the end of the tunnel. We get them out of harm's way, or if they're a bystander, help them feel assured that the organisation is taking respectful action, that they're employed by someone who cares. And that in itself has a second layer of ripple effect from a cultural perspective. So I think that is the thing that I get the most value out of. And seeing our team being able to deliver that type of impact every day is incredibly rewarding.
Oh, and it's an incredible thing to be able to look at a workplace and say, you should feel safe when you come to work.
Exactly. It's pretty basic, isn't it?
It is basic. You should not be exposed to trauma. You should not be exposed to, and again, it doesn't matter what industry, the traumas are different or the challenges are different. So, we've talked a lot about emergency services and the things that people who are in emergency services see, but the number one issue that they're raising is not actually the terrible tragedy of, someone being killed in a motor vehicle accident or the fire that they go to where, a whole home's been destroyed. It's actually the incivility that happens between workers. And I don't think anyone wants to work in a workplace where you're not treated well, you're not respected, or you don't feel valued. And so I'm particularly excited about that part of it because there's prevention, which is how do we create these amazing workplaces that people love to be at. And then there's some days people just have bad days. And we want to address those issues earlier before they become so catastrophic. And tell us a bit, so you've talked about your call. You now have what I think is probably one of the most exciting initiatives in a digital platform called Rely. Explain what that does. And I know you've just launched it, so I'm going to get into a few questions later. What's been the most stressful time in your life? And I've seen photos of you where you look like you've been run over by a Mack truck and then
it's been a time.
Scraped up and put back together. So tell us about Rely.
Thanks. I think the great thing about Rely and what it really lands on is that daily action and commitment to how an organisation handles culture and conduct issues. Small issues, conversations, hearsay, and then into serious allegations, issues and investigations. Rely is an intelligent platform that takes all of that information across an organisation, so it unifies all of those touch points up and down the hierarchy and helps create automations, procedurally correct and fair processes at every layer, and then smart AI-driven analytics that can learn from all of those touch points, build intelligence across a HRIS system, employee records, third-party vendors, and then build live analytics for boards, and then also help with decision-making around prevention activities and initiatives, learning from all those corrective behaviours and actions, etc., and what's contributed to it. So essentially getting to the root cause. Yeah. We are just getting started. We've got some fantastic clients already using it who are really large scale on the ASX, and finding how valuable all of this, I guess, hidden information in the shadows or in silos are. Having a whistleblowing platform is step one, and it's immensely powerful to safeguard the organisation. It's obviously also a legal and compliance imperative. Yep. However, there are still those daily conversations, like you said, about incivility that go unchecked, unmanaged. And also there's a gap, I guess, between knowing what to do with that information if you're the recipient of it. Yep. If you're that middle manager or that co-worker that has seen something, what do I actually do? And do I understand how that contributes to the whole of what moves the needle?
Yep. And again, we've talked about this, but there are some things that people don't even realise that they're creating a culture that's not okay. So little things like, I don't know, holding a meeting on a day when someone's not in the office, or and you know, the expectation that someone's available when they're doing pick up or drop off.
Yep.
And I mean, again, we've seen the pandemic and hybrid workplaces. I mean, that in itself, you know, people are now working from home. They're no longer physically in the office. So something like the Rely platform that's actually artificial intelligence I love as well, super clever, starts to pick up, starts to learn, starts to identify. And then as a leader, you can sort of look at it and de-identified data, look at trends. Okay, where are we seeing some of the challenges? Is it at a particular time in the day? Is it a particular person? Is it something that we're doing wrong in terms of our training? And you created it because you saw this massive gap in the market, which was, you've talked about people in silos. You know, it's hard. You go to work to work. You know, sometimes you don't have time to, you know, you're sending emails constantly, or you just sometimes don't think, oh, wow, wouldn't it be good to have a system that's actually smart and picks up things before they become problematic?
Exactly. It earns trust through action. So it also helps an organisation make a commitment, like some of the things you've just mentioned, set up a process, and then actually deliver on that action consistently across the organisation. And it's incredibly powerful when that happens. You're absolutely right. Because I think prevention is a little bit elusive.
Yep.
It is never going to get to a moment where there's no reporting or there's no whistleblowing. And that doesn't necessarily mean that's a good or bad culture if those things are high or low. What it does look to is to create an ecosystem that and this is why your call, Rely, and our approach to culture development with organisations all tie in together really nicely, which is the goal here is to help embed the understanding that the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. If you and I work together and we know we're both held to the same level of accountability, we both have the same ability to call things out, and there's the action and respect and commitment from leaders to deliver on that feedback loop, we're going to act differently, and that will in itself prevent things from going wrong, just like security cameras have an effect where they don't necessarily need to pick up the wrong doing that they're there to find. They do prevent things from happening. But also the system's there to accept it and to say that's okay and to create a response that then pushes the organisation forward. So the goal here isn't prevention and zero issues. Yep. The goal here is a framework that unifies everything into one place and delivers on what the leaders and the board's commitment is.
Yep. And I think it's important that you pick up on that, because this is a podcast about Life Untangled. It's about life. So people don't disassociate themselves from their life when they turn up for work. So, you know, things can be playing out behind the scenes that no one knows about that's not really work-related. You know, it might be a relationship breakdown. It could be issues with kids. You know, we've all, you know, challenges of that parenting role. It could be, you know, an older parent who's, you know, sort of at the end of life. And often we think, oh, well, people just turn up to work and that's, you know, cut. It's not. And so sometimes people can be having a bad day and that can play out in their work environment. So what we're saying is, how do we actually acknowledge that people can be having a bad day, walk the talk the walk, but it is sometimes challenging to put your hand up and say that behaviour is not okay.
You're right, it's a fine line.
Yeah.
We're not talking about workplace surveillance here, where we're trying to create robots who can't share emotion. Like you said, have a bad day. I had a bad morning this morning. My son just didn't want to go to daycare.
Yep. Well, I remember that well.
But I think I shared with you on the way here. I was stressed. I got caught in traffic on the way here. So I probably wasn't my best self walking in here. I probably wasn't that nice to whoever I interacted with in the walk from the car park to here. It doesn't mean that I'm need a report made against me. So you're right, there is a fine line, and that's why these tools need to work together in a cohesive way, and that's why the culture services that we focus on building, those listen up, speak up environments, are important, because it's talking about the daily discussions, and some of that is just having an honest discussion with someone and knowing how to accept feedback, how to be able to let yourself share how you're feeling in a safe way, so others are aware of it as well, and you take on those things. We have a great comment and term, I guess, in-house, which is purposeful disagreement and conflict, and it's a way to show how you can disagree, share conflict, show that you're emotional, share that you disagree in a really purposeful, positive way, even though they're negative terms.
Yep.
And it's similar here. We don't want people to switch off. You need to be very open about the realities of life.
Yeah, and I'm glad you've talked about the robot aspects of it, because technology can do amazing things, but at the end of the day, we are human beings, and humans turn up with every other aspect of their life. But it's the tech and the human connection that I think makes a big difference. And people are terrified, your big brother looking down on me. How have you managed the issues around confidentiality, data integrity? Are you monitoring and looking over me and watching for me to make a big mistake, and am I going to get into trouble for making that mistake? Now, that's not what you're about, but that's the fear that I think a lot of people, who are involved in their workplaces, they do have that fear until you actually address it and say, but this is about creating a better work environment, and then people go, oh yeah, I get that. So how do you address that one?
Quite simply, there's no surveillance technology here. We're not secretly sitting on laptops watching keystrokes and seeing what people are doing and then jumping down if they send something that doesn't seem quite right on a Teams or Slack chat message. That's not what this is about. What we're doing is putting structure, compassion, trauma-informed processes, and consistency in the framework and how these things are handled, because these things are being raised and felt anyway, with or without us, and they have been ever since
Day dawn.
Exactly right.
I don't even think that's a word, day dawn.
No, but we're on it's your podcast, Jane. We can invent it.
Day dawn, that's my new word.
Yeah, that's good. But it's ever since the Industrial Revolution, really, things have gone
the
wrong.
Day of dawn is what I meant to say.
Yeah, but things have gone wrong, and that's okay.
Yep.
But they haven't been handled well. So we, other than being at the highest level of security, we have all the ISO certs, etc., from a data perspective. But this is not a surveillance tool. Yep. This is helping bring two parties, the individual who needs to raise a concern and the organisation who needs to take action and find a resolution. We're joining those two dots in a way that creates a terrific feedback loop of respect, but also strong action that's legally compliant for the organisation, in line with their policies and procedures, and holds them accountable.
Yeah.
Likewise for the individual, though.
Yep, love it. Now, let's get a bit personal. If you wish.
Sure.
You don't have to overshare. I promised I wouldn't make you cry, but you never know. You're like in the big city. So what's been your greatest challenge? And it can be a work challenge, or it can be a life challenge, or it can be both. Because
I think the greatest challenge, everyone's got interesting stories that were challenging to them. So I think these things are all relative.
Yep.
One of the biggest challenges for me was being quite a young person in business. We're having started York with a few other people, and in my 20s, and trying to help organisations understand why our business model made sense. And in summary, our business model essentially means we're the intermediary person in between a person who raises a concern and the organisation. That's the Your Call model. They never connect to each other directly. That was really hard to convince organisations to believe in before the legislation change. So there's been numerous times. There's one in particular where I was presenting at a board. We didn't have too many clients, only about 10 to 15. And, we have hundreds now, but at that time that was pretty small. I was walking around the city doing different pitches, and this was my first one for the day. I arrived, did my pitch for about 45, 50 minutes, and ended the stone silence. I was sweating, I was very nervous. I was all suited up. I think I looked ridiculous. I think I was wearing a three-piece suit. You know when you're 25, you're doing silly things like that. But
I shouldn't laugh. That's very mean of me.
I'm laughing now. Now, so then they started laughing in a little bit, and I thought I probably deserved it because of the suit, but it wasn't because of the suit. And if it was, that would have been okay. But they were laughing because they thought the business was so ridiculous. And then I remember the chairperson said to me quite aggressively, after laughing and looking around the room, just said, "You're the reason you're ruining Australia. It's people like you that that are ruining corporate Australia. Why would anyone sign up to this? Why would we ever let you hear about the issues of the people? If they've got a concern, they'll come straight to us." We went through some awkward questioning, and I essentially left the boardroom. It was demoralising. That was really difficult. I'd obviously put up my house. I've got my wife and made significant professional sacrifices and family sacrifices to start this business. I'd walked away from other jobs at large organisations, and in your mid-20s, that's where you're setting yourself up for the engine room of what's about to happen next.
Absolutely.
And that was some pretty dark times there, and that continued for about 6 months, where I wasn't maybe not that severe, but that's 6 months where no one was really believing in the model. Funnily enough, we've now signed that client and that organisation. Everyone's left.
Is that chairman still there, or is he in jail?
No, they've all changed. Good luck to them. They were working on the basis of their assumptions and where they were at that time. So there's no resentment from our side. But it's interesting that organisation now works with us. They're thriving. Yeah. They take it so seriously, and it's wonderful how it's turned around. But I think it's a wonderful yardstick of how far corporate Australia has come in their willingness to lean into these types of services, and also how to not just have a policy in a drawer of a whistleblowing service, to actually be a leader in the way that they choose a vendor, but also how they choose to turn up. And it's a pretty big step for an organisation to do.
Yeah. And what an amazing story as a young man, the tenacity, the belief in yourself. It would have been easier to just quit.
It was really tough. My mentors and business partners could tell you many times where they've talked me off the edge of wanting to shut the business down or to just exit because it wasn't working. But slowly but surely, organisations started joining, leaders started, and many of those organisations are still our clients today. And that would give you a bit of a pep up, and then give you another bit of a pep up.
Yeah, and I remember as a young person, not anything that catastrophic to your confidence, but that same thing where you sort of, am I a fraud, or is this really real? And I remember my mentor, and you've talked about mentors, and I think they're really important, and he said, you don't need to get even on this stuff. You just need to get even better. And so it's a weird thing to say because, people think, if I just do this, I'll be okay. But it's not about evening the playing card. It's actually about how do I turn up to be my best self, and I really believe in this, I'm passionate about it, which you are, and you want to change the way the world works, and that's what you're doing. So it's such an important message to any founder out there who actually feels that, this is hard.
Absolutely. You're so right. Just to double tap on that for a second, that is all that kept you going at the time. At the end of the day, you had to pay the bills, and there's probably a little bit of naivety as well, and a bit too much courage because being so young and so inexperienced in business, it probably kept you going longer, and then it found our stride. But now we have that luxury in that position where we have amazing people in the team. 40 strong now. We have amazing leaders in the organisation as well, and we've used experiences like that to really start to understand where organisations may be, but also have proximity around where they're at in their journey. And when something like that happens, not all organisations are right at the same level. We have the tools and the expertise to be able to come in, identify that, and take them through a learning journey around where they may need to go, who they need to speak to in our team, and some of the work they need to do on themselves. So you're right, it absolutely has come full circle and it's become a learning opportunity for us where we don't get so demoralised if it happens these days.
And it's a good story, and
It's a good story.
it must have been terrible at the time. Like, it must have been terrible. You walk out in your three-piece suit. It's just not good.
The winner out of that story was my wife, because I never wore that three-piece suit again, and she told me multiple times never to do it. So I think there was also a massive opportunity for me to not make any more fashion disasters. But it was an interesting time. It doesn't sound so serious now, but at the time it's you've got there's no one at the organisation to turn to. You're in a room on your own, and I was still using my computer from university, and it was with masking tape holding the thing together. We had a wonderful service platform. But as the founder, you're sort of the last person to take any benefit or to reward yourself with anything. So it was a pretty tough time.
Yep. Now, you've talked about your mentors, you've talked about your wife. Who else has helped you during vulnerable times? Because there are many of these vulnerable moments in life, whether it's work-related or whether it's home-related or
There's probably two people that have really played a really formative role in the process for me, outside my wife and family and business partners. Number one is Vince. He actually is an investor and business partner in the entities that we have. He's a formidable force, a fantastic individual that's helped me along the way in coaching, mentoring, getting us out of issues, creating opportunities, and helping us see the glass half full, not half empty. Yep. So I think I owe a lot of what we've achieved to his wisdom and success before I've done it. So learning from him has been amazing. The second person's Greg Ritter. Greg's on the chair, is the chair of Kogan. And I met Greg because we have the privilege of being a certified B Corporation, and have been since we started, and we're won Best of the World 3 years. We're in the top 5% of B Corps globally.
Which is pretty amazing.
It's a major achievement.
It is an amazing achievement.
Yeah,
it is
really
incredible.
Proud of it. Yeah. Absolutely proud of it.
For the listener, what is a B Corp?
Sure. A B Corp is a opt-in third-party certification where you choose to be a for-profit, for-purpose business. And you get measured essentially on your community, social and environment support. It doesn't necessarily need to be financial giving, but how you measure your energy consumption, the type of decisions you make, and you essentially bake it into your entire operating model. I guess an example of how we deliver on that is we provide 5% of our revenue to the Alana and Madeline Foundation, and together with the team there, we've built a program attached to their eSmart license that builds tomorrow's leaders, I guess, destigmatising, dibby-dobbing, creating integrity-driven leaders. And that's an example that's really important. It's part of our values and our DNA.
It's your DNA. And Alana and Madeline, again, people who don't know it, that is the most incredible foundation that came off the back of the terrible tragedy of losing Alana and Madeline in Tassie. And to be able to give back in that way is just fabulous, because you do want to grow a generation of young people, children and young people who care and who actually want to make a difference in the world, and whether that's through listening up and speaking up, but also things like the environment and sustainability and just creating workplaces that people love and want to be a part of. So
and the leaders of tomorrow, exactly.
They are the leaders of tomorrow.
And that's where I met Greg. So we did that important work, and Greg, to be honest, sought me out, and he was on the board of B Lab, or the B certification body for Australia and New Zealand, and he met with us due to us being a high performer, and we had a meeting, and ever since then we met monthly or quarterly. We didn't put a label on it. We haven't for 5-6 years, and we just meet up as mates. But really, at the end of the day, he's one of my most cherished mentors, and he's helped me get through a lot of moments and a lot of times.
Yeah, and I think, again, my mentors are Dawn O'Neill and Jan Owen. And, incredible women, incredible thought leaders. There's not a name on it. I don't even know if they know that they're my mentors.
Well, that's right. I don't actually think I've said that to Greg before. That's exactly right.
But it's nice to have. It's that person. Yeah. That person. It's your person that you go, gee whiz, I've really mucked up here. And I've had one major muck up where I went to Dawn, I was like, I really mucked up here. What do I do with it? And she was incredible. She's just like, own it. Just own it. Yeah. Address it, own it, because we're not perfect. We are not perfect human beings. Well, you might be, but I'm
No,
certainly not.
far from it. But you're right, it's sometimes that practical advice. But, you and I have spoken a lot. You've run a lot of companies. You've started your own and not-for-profit or for-profit. And it's quite lonely. It's really cliche, but it's incredibly lonely. Nothing changes from that 25-year-old three-piece suit-wearing guy getting laughed out of a room. It was as lonely then as it is now because your staff and team and senior team are terrific, and that your blind spots diminish, and that's a wonderful benefit of it. You have more sounding boards, but at the end of the day, some things are quite isolating as one of the leaders running the company. And I know you feel the same. Those mentors are just invaluable for those reasons. You can be vulnerable, you can make mistakes, you can be emotional, which I think is the one that's really important. You don't need to adhere to any rules. You can kind of have a vent, and then they can put you back together pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Put you in the right direction.
Really important message. Now, project-wise, what's been your most difficult project? Is it Rely, or is there another one that you just go, that was just not my favourite thing to have done?
It's a great question. There's I've had many of them. No, I don't think Rely hasn't been. I know we joke about it. Rely hasn't been difficult. It's been nothing but joy. We've got 10 to 12 amazing people that work full time at Rely. I'm very fortunate that we've just been able to find the most remarkable people to make that platform and vision a reality. We've got a fantastic co-founder in Ben there.
Yeah, shout out to Ben.
Yep, he's a remarkable individual. And just the entire team has made it such a joy to work on. But as a whole, doing this work, multiple brands in the market at the one time, consulting, Your Call, Rely, bringing it all together and doing so quickly because the market's changing, obviously, but also to maintain the expectations of our amazing clients who need a lot of these services at volume and at scale. I think just the operational realities of that has been the difficult part. So not so much any one project, but the operational realities of delivering on that at high quality with hundreds of organisations, over 700 clients. To do that every single day at high level, at high quality, thank God for our team, but that's the part that's been really challenging and what I would have underestimated with how difficult that was. But we're learning and we're welcoming more and more great people to our team. We've hired our first external CEO at Your Call. I'm replacing myself, which is pretty
what does that mean?
Amazing and scary.
Are you nervous about that?
I don't think I'm nervous. I think we've chosen the right person. And that comes out on 1 September, which will be all over social media. But until that time, I'm not nervous. I'm incredibly excited. I'm incredibly grateful for what we've achieved and the team's been able to deliver to get us to this point because that's really the reason why the new CEO has chosen to join us. And I'm just more proud, I think, and elated than I am nervous. But that's an example of just some realities that need to start hitting the ground running to solve this operational imperative that we have. But nothing beats the most challenging thing. When I was at school, I started an underground.
I'm laughing because I know this
underground tuck shop. So I've always been starting businesses.
I don't know this story, actually.
Always.
There's another Nathan one.
Starting lots of silly businesses that would put me at the butt of everyone's jokes, and I've made a lot of mistakes. And I think I deserved all that bullying that happened. But one of them was I've had this bright idea of starting an underground tuck shop at high school because I thought the prices at the canteen were too high. So I got my dad into cahoots, and we started going to Coles on the weekend, buying cans of drink and chocolate bars and all sorts of things. And then I'd go to school and start undercutting the canteen in locations where they couldn't see me and selling to staff. And my friends would be the bouncers of sorts and help out and be the scouts looking out. The problem was my mum worked at that school and wasn't aware that this was happening, and I was using the staff room to heat up sandwiches and meals, and it was getting out of hand, and I essentially got caught. So so I nearly
get into trouble.
A lot of trouble, and nearly lost my position at the school. My mum obviously found out the hard way of what was happening, and she was an employee at the school. So if you could ask me about the most challenging,
it's a learning experience,
quasi-business experience, that was probably it.
It's a learning experience. Now, legacies. What would your one legacy be?
For my son, Oscar, to be an impactful, amazing, happy person.
Beautiful. What are you grateful for?
The people, other than my wife and my son, which is a given, it would be the ability to go to work every day with the amazing people in our team.
Nice message. Because I'm lucky to be a part of that group.
It's true.
Fabulous. I know.
That's the pinch yourself moment, is the
it's
quality
an
of people
amazing.
to work with.
Yeah, it's an amazing group of people.
Thanks.
Leave the listener with one message. What would it be?
Be the change you seek, be it in your personal life or at work. It's not that difficult. No one goes to work most of the time to be malicious, to be a bully, to be a bad person. Be the change you seek, and if we all work together and just do that one thing, we're roughly going to work out in a far superior position than we are today. And all the environments that we interact with will be a much more pleasant place.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, Nathan, for being on Life Untangled.
Thanks,
Great chat.
Jane. Lovely to chat.
Learned something else about you today.
Yeah, you too.
Tuck shop.
Yeah,
Underground.
Oh, I've got the business
Criminal.
plan if you still want
Criminal.
it. Former.
Lovely to have you on.
Thanks, Jane.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Life Untangled. I'm Professor Jane Burns, chatting all things life, heart, and head.
You're listening to another Torched original. Are you feeling stuck when it comes to creating content for you and your business? Would you like a podcast of your very own? Or maybe you'd like to stand out and reach new audiences? Head to gettorched.com. That's GETTORCHT.com today, and we look forward to helping you on your content creation journey.